The scariest thing about the Tyranids is not that they are strong. It is that they make strength feel irrelevant. In a normal war story, heroism matters because someone can hold the line, inspire the troops, break the enemy commander, or buy enough time for a miracle. Warhammer 40K loves that kind of image. A last stand, a fortress wall, a space marine surrounded by impossible odds, a banner still raised while the world burns. But the Tyranids poison that fantasy. Because against the Tyranids, courage is not a moral argument. It is not a symbol the enemy can understand. It is not something that makes the monster hesitate. To the swarm, courage is just biomass that has not been processed yet. That is why Tyranids work so well as horror. They are not evil in the same way chaos is evil. They are not cruel in the way the Dark Eldar are cruel. They are not imperial, proud, wounded, jealous, or ideological. They do not want your throne. They do not want your soul. They do not want to prove a point. They are hunger given strategy. The basic idea is simple. A Tyranid hive fleet arrives from the void. It scouts, infiltrates, adapts, consumes, and leaves a world stripped down to lifeless rock. Oceans, forests, cities, people, animals, bacteria, everything that can be converted into useful matter becomes part of the next wave. That already sounds apocalyptic. But the real horror is the intelligence behind it. The Tyranids are not just beasts spilling out of the dark. They are organisms inside a larger will, directed by the Hive Mind. A gaunt, a warrior, a monster the size of a building, a living artillery beast, and a psychic synapse creature are not separate soldiers in the normal sense. They are functions in one gigantic appetite that changes the way war feels. If an Imperial Guard regiment kills 1,000 organisms, that may not mean the enemy is losing. It may mean the Hive Mind is measuring the range of their guns. If a fortress survives the first assault, that may not mean the wall is strong enough. It may mean the next wave will arrive with bodies better suited to climb it, melt it, tunnel under it, or drown it in numbers. The Tyranids learn with corpses. That is a brutal idea because it turns victory into information for the enemy. Every heroic defense teaches the swarm how to eat the next one. Every clever weapon becomes a problem the Hive Mind can solve with biology. Every battlefield becomes a laboratory where the cost of failure is acceptable as long as the next organism is more efficient. This is where they break the normal emotional shape of Warhammer. The Imperium is built on sacrifice. It tells people that dying for the Emperor has meaning, that suffering can be sanctified, that a human life can become part of a sacred defense of the species. Then the Tyranids arrive and answer with total indifference. They do not mock the martyr. They do not respect the martyr. They do not even notice the martyr as a person. The soldier, the saint, the officer, the civilian, the priest, and the child are all reduced to the same category: useful matter. That is why Tyranids make heroism meaningless in a very specific way. Not because brave people cannot slow them down. They can. Not because battles against them never matter. They do. But because the Tyranids attack the story humans tell themselves about why sacrifice matters. A last stand can save a city from an army that wants territory. It can break the morale of an enemy that understands fear. It can kill a commander whose death changes the war. But against the Tyranids, there may be no commander in the human sense. There may be no morale to break. There may be no pride to wound. There may only be a living calculation spreading across the planet. The Imperium can win battles against hive fleets. It can burn worlds, redirect invasions, destroy synapse creatures, and throw absurd amounts of firepower into the swarm. But even those victories feel contaminated, because the clean solution is often extermination. If a world is too infected, too infiltrated, or too close to being consumed, the Imperium may decide that saving it is less important than denying it to the swarm. That is a perfect Warhammer nightmare. Humanity survives by making choices that look monstrous, because the alternative is feeding the monster even more. The Tyranids do not just attack bodies, they attack options, fight them conventionally, and they adapt, retreat, and they consume what you leave behind. Try to save everyone, and the delay may doom more worlds. Purge too quickly, and you become the horror you claim to resist. The setting becomes a trap where survival and morality are pulled in opposite directions. Then there is the shadow in the warp. This might be the most important part of Tyranid horror, because it makes invasion feel cosmic before it becomes physical. As a hive fleet approaches, its psychic presence can smother communication, crush hope, and isolate a world from the wider Imperium. Astropaths suffer, prayers feel unanswered. The universe gets quieter in the worst possible way. Imagine a planet that knows something is coming, but the sky will not explain it. Messages fail, panic spreads, commanders lose certainty. Then the first organisms appear, and the people defending the world understand that the silence was not emptiness. It was a shadow cast by hunger. That silence matters because Warhammer is a setting full of voices. Gods whisper, demons tempt, prophets scream, commanders broadcast orders, priests chant certainty into terrified crowds. The Tyranids bring a different kind of fear. They bring the feeling that the galaxy itself has stopped listening. And before the main fleet arrives, the invasion may already be inside the walls. Genestealer cults are one of the nastiest extensions of the Tyranid idea because they turn consumption into belonging. A cult does not always begin as a battlefield. It can begin as family, labor, secrecy, faith, rebellion, and hope. People who feel crushed by the Imperium can be drawn into a community that tells them they matter. That is what makes it awful. The cult can be sincere. Its members can love each other. They can believe liberation is coming. They can believe the Star Children will deliver them from oppression. And when the Hive Fleet arrives, that promised salvation becomes digestion. The Tyranids make even hope unsafe. That is a much deeper horror than claws and teeth. It means the swarm does not only invade territory, it invades meaning. It can turn loyalty, family, worship, and revolution into tools that prepare a world for consumption. So when people say the Tyranids are just bugs, they are missing the point. The surface image is the horde. The deeper image is a galaxy where individuality can be erased without hatred. Chaos wants to corrupt you. The Imperium wants to use you. The Necrons may see you as a trespasser. The Orcs want the fight. The Tyranids barely grant you the dignity of being an enemy. You are an ingredient. That is why Space Marines look different when they face Tyranids. Against many foes, a Space Marine can feel like the answer. He is the armored myth of the Imperium, the human form exaggerated into a weapon. He is what the setting offers when ordinary survival is not enough. But against the swarm, even that image shrinks. A Space Marine can kill hundreds of organisms. A squad can hold a breach. A chapter can become legendary in the defense of a doomed world. But the Tyranids force a horrible question over every heroic image. How much did that actually cost the swarm? If the answer is less than the biomass gained, less than the lesson learned, or less than the time bought for the rest of the fleet, then heroism becomes part of the math. That is bleak, but it is also why the faction is so useful for Warhammer 40K as a setting. The Tyranids reveal the terror beneath everyone else. They make the Imperium's cruelty look practical, which is horrifying. They make Space Marine heroism look temporary, which is humbling. They make chaos look almost personal by comparison, because at least demons care enough to tempt you. They make politics, honor, prophecy, and revenge feel small next to a hunger that can cross intergalactic dark. The best Tyranid stories are not just about whether a world survives. They are about what survival costs when the enemy cannot be reasoned with, cannot be shamed, and cannot be satisfied. They are about the moment a civilization realizes that all its symbols, all its ranks, all its sacred language, and all its heroic poses are being judged by a force that only asks one question. Can this be eaten? That is the core of their horror. Not that they are unbeatable. Warhammer would be boring if they were. The horror is that beating them rarely restores the world to innocence. Even victory feels like a burned field, a quarantined city, a shattered fleet, a butchered population, or a secret cult that might still be waiting under the floorboards. The Tyranids make every win feel provisional. Somewhere else, another tendril is moving. Somewhere else, another world is hearing the warp go quiet. Somewhere else, someone is mistaking the first sign of invasion for a miracle. And that is why they may be the purest horror faction in Warhammer 40K. They do not need speeches. They do not need revenge. They do not need a throne, a crown, a prophecy, or a tragic backstory. They only need you to be alive long enough to become useful. In most stories, heroism means standing up to the monster. Against the Tyranids, heroism means standing in front of hunger and hoping the seconds you buy are worth more than the body you leave behind.